Why in the world are Democrat billionaires, through dark money, through front groups, laundering these monies into these student organizations, laundering money into these terrorist front organizations, Students for Justice in Palestine, Jewish Voice, the Students for Justice in Palestine, founded by a Marxist Islamist terrorist promoting professor out west and funded in part by Hamas. Why is the Democrat Party so silent? Because they want to turn out their base. One of the things we're hearing about now from the NYPD, don't you love the NYPD and these other police forces? They are the best. I've been talking about here to you for well over a month now to follow the money trail, because it leads to the Democrat Party, the billionaires, the dark money, leads to Hamas, leads to Qatar, leads to communist China. All these things are being done. And these colleges and universities are petri dishes. They are wide open to this sort of thing because they basically are run by Marxists. So you have this fusion of what I've been saying, the Marxists and the Islamists. And I've told you before, it starts with the Jews and then it expands. So they're burning the American flag, they're attacking America generally, they're talking about revolution in America. And that's where we are today. We've not heard a thing from Chuck Schumer. Or actually, I think last night he put out some weak, pathetic comment. We haven't had a definitive statement from the President of the United States. People around him pretend that he's upset. I want to tell you what's actually going on before we get to this clip. I want to tell you what's actually going on before we get to this clip. Joe Biden feels he benefited from 2020. He feels he benefited from those riots, the George Floyd-inspired riots. You recall he said almost nothing. He put out a statement from his basement, and that was it. You recall Kamala Harris was raising money for organizations to get these criminals out of jail. You recall the Democrat Party and their surrogates in the sports world, in the entertainment world, in the media, were celebrating Black Lives Matter, a Marxist, anti-Semitic, anti-American organization, which of course defrauded everybody. Even saw Mitt Romney marching in Washington, D.C. with Black Lives Matter. I think the lesson that Joe Biden took from that was that fired up his base. Again, from his perspective, it got out his voters, particularly minority voters. It got out white leftists and liberals in the suburbs. It got out the academia vote. It got the media all worked up. Donald Trump, again, was Hitler. Donald Trump was a white supremacist. Anti-cop was this movement. Anti-law and order was this movement. Arsonists, killers, just brutal criminals. And I feel that Joe Biden believes, and I believe to some extent, that that helped turn out his base. It helped to congeal it. It helped to provoke it. It helped to motivate it. And it's 4 years later, isn't it? Why in the world are Democrat billionaires, through dark money, through front groups, laundering these monies into these student organizations, laundering money into these terrorist front organizations, Students for Justice in Palestine, Jewish Voice, founded by Noam Chomsky, the Students for Justice in Palestine, founded by a Marxist Islamist terrorist promoting professor out west and funded in part by Hamas. Why is the Democrat Party so silent? Because they want to turn out their base. They figure they have enough Jews in their back pocket in terms of voting, it'll be okay. Steven Spielberg's out there as I speak, working with the Biden campaign on how to market itself. Thomas Friedman, a self-hating, anti-Israel leftist. He's the whisper into Blinken's ear and Biden's ear, writing at the New York Times. He's got their backs. Blinken himself, he's half Jewish. His parents were bought and paid for by George Soros. There's no question about these things. And you look, they just figured this guy Saban, Ninja Turtles, he started that and so forth. He's a multi-billionaire, Israeli Jew in California, did a massive fundraising for Biden. And so they figure they have this all wrapped up. But what they need to do now is get the Islamist vote, or as I call it, the Hitler Youth vote. The Hitler Youth vote is not so easy for Biden to get. Why? Because they definitely want the extermination of the Jews, the elimination of the state of Israel. This is what they've heard from Hamas. This is what they've heard from these other groups. And this is what they believe. Joe Biden can't afford to lose this vote from his perspective. So he's doing everything he can to keep the Hitler Youth vote. That's what it is. It's the Hitler Youth vote. Today, as I speak, he's issued another $6 billion in student loan forgiveness to a for-profit college institution, the Art Institute of America. I think that's the name of it. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it's one of those groups. $6 billion? Oh, let's see, the artsy youth? Now, there's some conservatives, but most aren't. By the time he's done, it'll be nearly $1 trillion in unconstitutional, illegal raiding of the U.S. Treasury using your tax dollars for student loan forgiveness. And that includes the Hitler Youth, as he's out there buying the vote. In fact, so important are these voters to Joe Biden, at least in his pea brain, that he wants to import Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. Now, what's the problem with that? There's a lot of problems with that. First and foremost, they've been indoctrinated since they were babies by Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Muslim Brotherhood, and every other stinking rat organization to hate America and to hate Jews and to resort to violence. Why would we import such a culture into the United States?
For more, sign up for Levin TV.